Hello, everyone. Welcome to Babies with Knives. I'm your hostess, Alice Pang, aka Lala Twiddle on the boards and Discord. And with me tonight is my ever present co host, Brandon. Brandon Powers. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing excellent this evening. We're going to sit down and get amped up, if you will. So I'm looking
Yes.
forward to it. How about you?
I'm still trying to recover from being from losing my voice. So we'll see
I
how
can
well I
still
hold
hear
up
it.
tonight. Yes, and I apologize to our audience if it becomes a problem at all. Hopefully, it won't be. And tonight, like Brandon's saying, we're going to get amped up. We're going to be creating characters for AMP Year 1. It is a fantastic system by Third Eye Games, and yeah, we've had a lot of fun playing with it a few times over the years. Let's get started.
So, first of all, just a little bit about the setting on Ampere 1. It is a modern day world where, in the current year, people start developing superpowers.
Yes.
And it's following around basically this sudden surge of weirdness going along with that. That there's like this incident of giant bees, and that happens somewhere in Texas, I think it was. And there was Third Eye Games put out a series of different modules detailing some of the events, and the story continues on Ampere 2, 3, 4,
And
adding in
5.
new powers, new factions, and 5 either just recently kickstarted or is about to kickstart. I forget which.
And 5 is going to be the close, as I understand, for the series. That's the planned close. But yeah, it's going to be. It, so, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, the basic engine is that you take a d20, you add your modifiers, and you're looking for a target number. Every 5 that you exceed your target number, you get a little boost for that. There are some things that will lower or raise how much you have to win by, and that's the basic engine. The superpowers in the game come in these categories called strains. We'll go over those in just a little bit.
The
Um,
the idea behind some of the terminology in this game for strains is that AMP was caused by the emergence of superpowers was caused by DNA changes, and so suddenly this coming out, a lot of people gravitated towards different aspects of life, and some people just want to hide their superpowers, trying to deal with our current world with that added to it. So strains amplify that aspect that it comes from a mutation in your DNA.
so, for character creation, the first thing that we're going to be working on is our concept, which is pretty much where you should be starting in almost any character creation. And Alice, how are you doing with your concept?
My concept, I will be creating a character named Isaac Jones, aka Jolt. By the way, for our viewers, this game there is a term called SAP name. And SAP name is what you would normally consider in most superhero games your non heroic ID, your normal human persona, etc. SAP stands for Homo sapien.
Sapient, yeah.
Yeah, it's for Homo sapiens. And as for my character Isaac Jones, he's a um, he's a black kid, grew up in a rough neighborhood, ended up in a gang for a time. Parents were gunned down by gangbangers to punish him for leaving the gang life behind. He had to adopt his younger brother because he was the only living relative left, so suddenly thrusted into being a father figure at the age of 17, 18 was really rough on him. And he had his goal in life before he got his superpowers, as well as his prospect in actually giving him and his brother a good life, was the possibility of ending up in the NBA. He was very talented in sports, especially basketball. He But that all changed when he got his superpowers. And as for superpowers, he's going to be a bit like Gary from Alphas, if you have any familiarity with that. He has the ability to kind of be a rigger. I'm sorry, not rigger. Sorry, it's late. Decker is what I mean. A decker in Shadowrun terms, where I'm jacking into the internet and I can just be absorbed into that. And with that, I'm going to take a side power of electricity to just kind of show that I am, getting in on that on the electrical band waves and all.
That's awesome, Alice. I mean, I know this is a character that you played very briefly years ago and worked on a history for in AMP, though we don't have the character currently. You know, you've got a great image, and just listening to it, I think it's fantastic.
Thanks.
As I told you back then, it's a character that I'd love to run for because I thought that it was fantastic.
I only got to play it for like one session, so hopefully I get to play it
Yeah.
again for real.
For myself, I'm going to be working on a young college age girl named Donna Walsh, and she is going to school for medicine. She's been involved in like community outreach and such like that throughout her life, has, you know, a strong ties to the local community, and is curious, has always been why do things work, and that's kind of the combination of those two led her into that medical study of helping people as well as understanding the way that things are. Her handle, as Alice was already talking about, that there's a tradition, just as in modern day online, you take on a handle, and so that's kind of where it came from, is to hide your identity during the events that are uh, occurring, but also take on something. And there's a section in the game that talks about certain handles are going to get you targeted. Like if you do, say you're invulnerable or unbeatable or something like that, people are going to be the ones that want to take you down. So therefore they can say that they did that. I'm going with the name Coppertop. She's just like her Irish ancestry, has got red hair, but she's going to have these powers that allow her to channel what's called juice in the game, which is what powers superpowers. And so she's going to be able to use it more efficiently, kind of give it to other people, as well as steal it from people. And so she is a literal battery. Those are the concepts that we're working with. And so, and Alice, you're similar age, I believe, to Coppertop on Jolt, aren't you?
You know, I was looking at entering college years just now, so I'd be like 18, 19
Gotcha.
at the moment.
Yeah, so I got a couple of years on you as I'm already in, you know, medical school and such.
Hmm.
Once we work on our concept, the next step is that we have 10 points to distribute into loyalties. And this is what we hold near and dear. Whether we're the guardians of Hell's Kitchen, we need to protect dear Aunt Petunia, or, you know, whatever it is. If we have with great power comes great responsibility. The loyalties all are rated on a 1 to 5 scale. If you have no points in it, it just means that that's not that important to you. And if you have 5, that is a huge benefit to you, but it's also a huge barrier to you, because if you have 5 points tied up in community, then it's so hard for you to remove yourself from that community. And so there's benefits, but also role playing drawbacks or role playing storylines that can come from them. The loyalties, and once again we get 10 points to spread between these, are community. You're tied to the area. You pick a few places that you are important to you. Comrades, the friends and allies that you have that can do favors for you, but you are expected to do favors for them too. Your humanity, just your inability to see people suffer and not act, which will give you bonuses when people are suffering and you're acting to prevent that. Justice, just that people need to be responsible for their actions. Some things are wrong and we need to protect, bring those to justice. Love, which is very much what it sounds like, is that you are have an allegiance to someone in your life. It doesn't have to be romantic love necessarily. Like you could love somebody like a brother, or love your best friend, things like that. Perfection, which is you building yourself to really succeed and exceed in one specific area, or as it goes up, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas. And that makes buying up skills later on in the game cheaper if you've picked them. Self, which is that you value yourself, really important. There's, people with no self are might do things that are crazy, like being, martyrs to the point of dying, because they don't view themselves as that important. And people that have high self might be very self-centered, but they're also empowered by that. They are going to fight to live because of that value. And then the last one is truth, which gives you bonuses when you are trying to reveal secrets, roll knowledge checks, research, that kind of stuff. So, Alice, where do you see Jolt's loyalties being?
And realize just because you don't have a loyalty doesn't mean that you don't have a bond with someone necessarily, because there are other places to gain those kinds of bonds. For me, I'm taking one in community, which is going to be like the Blacktops. It's like I said, he's a big into basketball. It was a big deal for him most of his life. So the Blacktops, where he would play basketball, where he got himself recruited in trouble, stuff like that. So that's the community of people that he deals with. Comrades at two. One of them is going to be an ex-gangbanger that someone he knew basically when he was in the gang life. Whether the guy's still in trouble or whatnot, that's to be determined. And the other one I was looking at being a detective. Oh, and the gang guy is named Zeke. The detective is named Jody Marshall. Jody, basically became a surrogate mother figure after my parents died, and looked out for my little brother and I when we were in foster care, tried to make sure we were kept together, and tried to, and when I wanted to take over guardianship, she went out of her way to make sure that she helped make it happen. So she's very much a mentor and a surrogate parent. Humanity, I have at 3. Justice, I have at 2. And perfection, I have at 2. Now, the key to perfection is that when you take perfection, for each rank in perfection you get one checkbox over here on skills. And what that checkbox does, and I'm going to be taking it in technology, and I'm going to be taking it in crafts. Actually, I might change that. But what that does is it gives me an automatic free rank in it for having perfection. And after character creation, during play, normally the cost of stuff goes up exponentially. The higher your ranking, the harder it is going to be to get the next rank. But for anything that I have checkbox for perfection, it's always going to be at a flat 3-point rate for me. Much cheaper. And then, yep, that's what I have.
Okay. For me, I'm looking at community. The first one's going to be the hospital that she is currently working at during her, the residency and such like that. And I just see that would be an important place to her, that, taking care of people is the specific goal of a hospital, as well as just what her personal ties there. And so that's going to be the first location that I would pick out. The second one, I would go with a bar that's kind of like the place that she goes to just hang out and relax, get away from things, but also goes to bring her laptop and study in a corner of the bar. Not so much the party bar, but more the Irish bar that her family has
Starbucks.
gone to or something. No, no, it's O'Leary's is the bar's name.
Sure.
The comrades, the two that I was thinking about, was a doctor at school or something that maybe he's involved in realizing what's going on before she is. And so maybe, an associate in the Seekers of Enlightenment, which we're going to get to in a minute here, but somebody that she could use as some sort of resource that probably knows a little bit about what she's going through as an amp. Not necessarily firsthand, but just on the research side. The second one I was thinking of was like a police detective, somebody that she knows from before, and that she could come to now, maybe not as, Donna Walsh, but instead as Coppertop. And she kind of knows how to get him working on her side, and will at that point be able to use him as a resource, but have to tit for tat pay him back for things. I'm looking at 3 points in humanity that, once again, she's very moved by people suffering and needing to assist them during those times of need. And the last one is 3 points of truth, that she's seeking answers, and that's a big motivation for the character here. I'm not building a combat character, somebody who's got superpowers that are making them great at fighting themselves, but instead somebody who's kind of thrown into this situation and can't let it go because they need to understand what's going on and why things are changing. Those are going to be the loyalties that I'm working with. After our loyalties, we have to pick our affiliations. So we already mentioned a little bit of the meta plot of AMP Year 1. And in this, when you make a character, you pick a group that you're aligned with. In AMP Year 1 itself, there's 4 groups, and in some of the later years, they added groups to add alignments with. The first is Changelings, which is kind of like a Magneto-type faction that they believe that the amps need to take power for themselves to ensure their own safety, and aren't really so concerned with the sapients.
Important note about Changelings also. They believe this is a whole new species, that they are a whole new creature, and that they have no connection to Homo sapiens, to human beings, and that they are very likely feeling superior. This is a superior species. So that creates a noticeable distance and a shatter of perspective.
The next group is the Typhoon, which is being a member of a criminal organization that's really tied up in all of this. After that, it's the Seekers of Enlightenment, which is the Charles Xavier side to the Magneto of the Changelings, and more seeking for amps to get along. This one's got each of these factions gives you a benefit for your character. This is kind of the default of amp, just like being a dragon in feng shui is the default. Alice cringes as I pronounce that word.
Yeah, feng shui.
And that's exactly what I said.
Sure.
The important power there, it ties into the meta plot. When amps start getting near each other, they get juiced up to fight. Something about their nature, when more than one of them is in an area, they kind of get ready to go. And this is looking into comic books of their origins. When superheroes would meet up, they'd fight. Human Torch and Spider-Man, oh look, Spider-Man did something, it must be him because he was in the area, and I found webs. So when I see him, I'm going to go gunning. And this is kind of the game's way of following in with that approach. For the Seekers of Enlightenment, they get a better resistance against that kind of approach. The last one out of the factions in the starter book is the United Human Front, and these are going to more be your people who are looking for humanity first. Specifically, the Friends of Humanity from the X-Men storylines, the Genosian magistrates, people like this that are looking to hunt down, capture, sometimes destroy amps, and protect humans' interest. There's one other option that you can do, and that's be unaligned and not associate with one of these groups so far, whether by choice or simply because you're new. And that's exactly what I'm doing for Coppertop, is that she's new to all this, and so I'm going unaffiliated with her.
I'm also going unaffiliated because it's once again new to me. I'm just starting off in college expecting to become a big basketball star, and then suddenly things get derailed because I can't stay focused on that track anymore.
And what the benefit that unaffiliated gives you is you get 4 extra build points at the end, which are like freebie points if you ever played one of the World of Darkness or Exalted games. And they're just points that will allow you to kind of fine-tune your character to the vision that you've got. After that, we're moving on to skills. We have skipped statistics, as you will find in most games. There's no strength, dex, con, etc. Instead, the way that skills work, some of them will mimic that. The might skill is kind of like your strength score.
The fortitude
But
similar to constitution.
yeah, discipline could be wisdom in some games, and they go on. Some of them are closer than others. But the way that the rolling engine in this game works for most of your rolls is that you're going to take two things and add them together and come up with something. And so
And then
if you
add your
take
die
your
roll.
yeah, and add your die roll. So if you take, you need to resist fear, that would be a discipline, your ability to stay focused, and empathy, your ability to, deal with emotions. And you take your discipline, add your empathy, roll a d20, and, total that up, and that would be what you've got. There's lots of different combinations. There's 22 skills in all. Going over them quickly, it's going to be athletics, beast handling, crafts, deception, discipline, empathy, fighting, fortitude, intimidation, intuition, knowledge, marksmanship, might, medicine, perception, performance, persuasion, speed, stealth, survival, technology, and travel.
Now, two notes I want to make about these skills. These really are skills. And I mention that because in a lot of superhero games, when you see skill like, and I put that in quotes, the term speed or travel, it somehow becomes superpower. The travel that you have or the speed that you have amplifies or adjusts or modifies your superpowered flight or superpowered teleport. In this game, it's not meant to be that way. Travel is your mundane traveling methods such as boat, car, ship, uh, you know, uh, plane, etc., how you're able to navigate and pilot those. Speed works like it's physical as well as mental speed. For example, if you want to fast talk somebody, then it would be persuasion and speed. If you need to think up something very quickly, you're like, oh gosh, I need to figure this out really quick. It might be knowledge and speed, or if you're trying to hack something really fast, it would be tech and speed, or if you're a technopath like I am, it could be craft and speed. So just want that stated so that people don't think, oh, I've got speed or I've got travel and therefore that automatically is kind of like a superpower. It doesn't work that way in this game.
Both are excellent points there.
Cool. Thanks.
So you get 35 points to distribute between these 10 different, or these 22 different skills, and they give you a little guideline as to where, each, if you have this many points in the skill, how good are you at it? And so if you've got 0 points in a skill, you're going to be clueless. 1 to 2 is a hobbyist, 3 to 4 is an enthusiast, 5 to 6 is an expert, 7 to 8 is a veteran, and 9 to 10 is a master. 9 and 10 are going to cost double the amount that any of the other ranks do.
And depending on who you play with as your GM, a lot of GMs that I've dealt with so far for it, they tell you that they don't really want you to buy the 9 and 10 to start with. They want somewhere for you to progress. So generally, you just be aware of that. Make sure that your GM is okay with you buying the 9 and 10 at double.
So
And
Alice, where are
yes,
you looking for Jolt here?
okay.
How are you looking at breaking down these 35 points? And remember, she's got 2 free points to start with because
Yes.
of her perfection.
So I'm going to go with 6 athletics because, as I said, I am an athlete. I am a natural athlete. 4 in crafts. Crafts is going to be something that I will need to utilize in my technopathy. Deception at 4. Again, I'm buying that for the purposes of my technopathy in the long run. I have a fighting of 4 and a fortitude of 4. I'm decent in a fight. Fisticuffs, because I grew up in a rough neighborhood. I needed to defend myself. I needed to defend my little brother. Uh, I I don't need to back down to a bully. I have a might of 1. I have a perception of 4. I have persuasion of 7. And that again is going to be a big thing for me for technopathy because I will be persuading my in interfacing with machines. I will be persuading the machine to do what I want it to do rather than simply typing into it with a keyboard. And the last bit is going to be technology at 4.
So you don't your character basically has no idea how to drive a car.
Nope.
And if you're looking
But
at basketball, you might want to bring that speed up a little bit, I would think.
yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, I had speed, in one of the incarnations, but I had to mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna try and fiddle with that a little. The An important thing about the fact that I don't need to drive. I ask the car to drive somewhere. I can literally take it over with my technopathy, with the powers that I will have.
That's
So,
pretty awesome.
and therefore, I'm like, hey, car, can you take me here and there? And then we go into the GPS and it starts driving. Now, the car may not be good at combat driving at that point, but I can get place to place without it.
That's pretty awesome. Very Hardison of you.
Right? Um,
Age the Geek.
Age of the Geek, baby. That's right. And, but yes, I did want to try and up my speed, but I think that I need to work on figuring that out later because everything else is about where I need it to be at the moment.
You need that much persuasion. That was monstrous. That's awesome.
Persuasion is my primary ability because it will go to tech speak, which is technopathy plus persuasion, and that is what allows me to no longer need to interface with peripherals like keyboard or mouse or input devices such as styluses. Therefore, I need to get that as high as I can get it because it's going to be a lot more expensive later to try and improve that. Whereas tech and crafts, I can improve much cheaper. So,
Gotcha.
what about, and
Uh,
this puts me at 37. As mentioned, I have an extra 2, so 35 plus 2 is 37. Brain, what about you?
I so for me, looking at
Oh,
like I was saying,
I
go ahead.
apologize. I was looking at my notes. Actually, right now, I believe I should have, let me double check this. Um, yeah, I only have 5 in persuasion right now. I accidentally placed my 2 freebie points in.
Oh, okay.
So later on, I'll be putting 2 freebie points into persuasion to bring that up. But I'm back in that
So
35.
for me, a young, college girl is where I'm going. So I went with athletics too. She, goes out for runs, does some working out. She's not by no means a scholarship athlete like Jolt is looking at being, but she does stay reasonably fit for herself. Discipline I have at 6 ranks up, and that's the ability to focus at times. And so in being trying to be a doctor and such, let alone going through medical school, being able to focus in and studying in the middle of a bar, if it does get crowded and such, that's going to be hard. It's going to be a place that she's going to use that. The empathy, I'm looking at 4. This goes with her really caring about people, that she can sense the problems, the emotions that they're having, and wants to go out and try and fix those. Her intuition is going to be 4, which is just following instincts in the time of a crisis. It can be avoiding ambushes or just happening upon clues at the last moment. And so I figure, at times in medicine, at some point, you just got to go with your gut. And so that's going to be helpful for that. Knowledge of 4, she's pretty well studied for a lot of different things, and that's going to help in recalling medical facts as well as other things. Speaking of medicine, that's going to be 7, which puts her, just like I was talking about with Alice's persuasion of 7. That's a pretty beefy area, and I didn't really want to go any higher than that. I could, by all means, use some higher medicine if I wanted to for something that's going to come up later, but 7 medicine's pretty good. Perception of 3, just being able to notice things, keeping her head on a swivel and such. Persuasion of 3, she might, she can sense people's problems. She's kind of got a good gut, and she's reasonably good to talk to listen to, convince people of things. But she's better at more empathizing than she is convincing folks. The last ones are Technology of One and Travel of One. She knows how to get around on a computer, but is not going to be an amazing user. She word processes well and she Googles well. Travel of One, she can drive her car. And that's the 35 points. They disappear super quick, but I definitely feel that I get to represent the stuff that I do want her to have with that.
They really do disappear very quick. And
The next,
when you get to derived stats, you'll feel that even more because, like, what for me, I was like, oh shoot, my initiative's gonna be a 1. So you'll definitely feel where these points went even further.
yeah. All right, the next thing that we work on is our strains, which once again, this is kind of the superpowers. We were talking about how they're in families before, and this is a really important thing because for me, I'm going to be in the blaster family, which means I have to pick one power from the blaster family. After that point, I can take powers from elsewhere, but if I do, they will become more expensive to level up later in the game. I can take all of my powers in the blaster family, and at that point, they won't have that problem. So, going through the strains just real quick for people. The blaster family is the first one. This is battery. Each of these has, I think it's 6 or 7 sub powers to them, and the strain is only used because this is, like Alice was talking about, a genetic kind of thing that these powers show up together, and that's the reason that they've been classified like this by the scientists currently studying this phenomenon. So blasters, battery, the ability to store and release energy. Bolt is to fire blasts of energy. Constructs is create objects of energy. Enhancer is to use energy to enhance powers. Flux is an energy aura, and Vampire is draining energy from others. The next strain is bulks, and this is going to be a lot of your physical type powers. You've got, going with general names, super speed, super strength, biomorphic body control, super reflexes, damage resistance, and then the super healing of regeneration. Elementals are going to be after the classic elementals and their ability to control things. So it's earth, air, fire, metal, plants, and water. Then there's ferals, which are going to be your Wolverines, Wolvesbanes, ferals, thorns, those kind of characters. You've got Chimera, which is the ability to take on animalistic aspects. The ability to claws is the next one, so Wolverine-style claws or whoever's claws. Killer Instinct, which gives you an awesome power that gives you these bonuses against prey that you designate. Mind control of animals is called Leash. The ability to release pheromones, and last is to have poison. Mindbenders is going to be one of your 2 mental disciplines, and so this is going to have mind control, hyper intelligence, emotion manipulation, the ability to create illusions, the ability to manipulate memory, and telepathy. Psyches is going to be the second of the 2 mind-based ones. This has astral projection, psychic senses, the ability to communicate with spirits, dream manipulation, psychometry, so the ability to get psychic visions from touching of objects, and visions, which is just dreamlike images of the past and the future. Shapers, which is the group that Alice is coming in with Jolt, I believe. This is more the meta powers, that they are powers that kind of manipulate concepts of things or general things. They don't have a strong tie together as a strain like some of the others. And it's control over disease, darkness, healing, luck control, technopathy, which is machine manipulation that Alice is going with. And then transmutation is changing objects into different objects. Shifters is going to be the ability to change your body around. So duplication, elasticity, so you can be like Mr. Fantastic. Intangibility, be like Kitty Pryde. Invisibility, the Invisible Woman. Shapeshifting, Beast Boy. And sizing, Ant-Man, Giant Man type stuff. And the last strain is Travelers. This is going to be all your stuff dealing with movement as well as creating force fields. So you've got the barrier power for force fields, time manipulation, flying, portals, telekinesis, and teleportation. Those are the different strains. And like I said, I'm going to go with being a blaster.
And my primary, like Brandon mentioned, is going to be the Shaper for Technopathy. And the Technopathy core ability is that I will have the innate connection to computers and electronics, making my interface very much second nature. What this means is anytime that I want to interface with technology or any sort of machines in general, I get my Technopathy superpower added to my technology checks or my craft checks if I'm dealing with, let's say, the mechanics of a car or such like that, and I'm crafting to try and repair the car. I naturally use my Technopathy. Oh, the car tells me, hey, you're putting that in the wrong place. The transmission goes here. So I know how to deal with that. I'm going to be taking that up to a whole 4 points. At every even point, at every even tier, you get a bonus in the form of an augment. So that can be an enhancement or a trick. My first enhancement, which is marked as an E1, is Tech Speak. This allows me to roll Technopathy plus Persuasion instead of using standard interface materials such as keyboard, mouse, stylus, or I guess if I'm working with a car, those gauges that people now use in mechanic shops, all those different mechanical machines to try and interface. I mean, cars even you deal with mechanics who deal with keyboards dealing with cars now, but I don't need any of that. I just talk to it and ask it, pretty please, will you do this for me? And
Vroom, vroom.
yep. And my other one is called wireless, which is going to be a trick 2, T2. And that is that I mentally connect to the internet. Once again, I'm like Gary from Alphas, or I'm a Decker from Shadowrun. I literally see the internet all around me and I can pull information at will.
So two things. Alice has said three different terms: augments, enhancements, and tricks. Augments are going to be these additional powers, no matter whether they're an enhancement or a trick.
It's the
An
category for the
enhancement,
enhancement and
yeah,
trick.
an enhancement modifies that core ability that she initially talked about, while a trick gives you something totally different to do with your power. So, like an enhancement might, if you were dealing with super strength, an enhancement would give you some sort of bonus while using your general super strength, but a trick would allow you to take coal and then come out with a diamond. These are not examples from the game, but
It's
just
an
as an
example.
idea. And then the numbers that she was listing, that she said like E1 and T2, I believe.
Yep.
So first of all, that's E is
Enhancement
for
1.
enhancement, E
Yes.
is for trick, and then the number with it is how much juice they cost. We mentioned juice earlier. This is the endurance that you use to pay for superpowers. We walk around with 3. If you're not doing anything important for about 30 minutes, you're going to be at 3 juice, whether that comes up or goes down.
Now,
And
juice.
then, go ahead.
Sorry. Juice, if you need a better understanding, is a lot like superpowered adrenaline. The more amped, as per the name of the game, you get in a situation, the more tense you get, the more juice as well as adrenaline that you get. And there are a number of ways to get it, including certain abilities in the game where if you fornicate with someone you care about, you can actually get juice prior to an encounter. There are a lot of different ways.
From page 64 of the book, the way that they give a list of different things as examples. So once again, we start at 3 juice. At the start of any combat with another amp, you get a juice. If you're ambushed or the victim of a trap, if you roll a 20 or a 1 on your d20, you get a juice. If you reach half your hit points or a quarter of your hit points, you get juice. In an exciting car chase, get juice. Dangling or falling from a terrible height, comrade takes near fatal or fatal hit. Enemy reinforcements arrive. Loyalty comes under harm or threat. Extended exercise, which would be what Alice was just speaking of.
I was in a game where there were 2 characters that were close that would do that before major encounters to get points. So
making an important discovery. Actually, sexual activity is specifically listed separately.
Yep. Because that tells you how much
Stimulants.
you get for it.
and then successful check against fear. And so these are just ways that you can get more and more juice as time goes, as things are happening.
Now, as a note, when they talk about stimulants, they're not exactly talking about your cup of coffee. They're more talking about you taking a 4-hour energy or Red Bull or drugs, actual drugs. But a cup of coffee or a cup of tea is not going to necessarily get you juice unless you can play it off real well with your GM.
You know, if somebody took their round in combat, it moved as well and said, "I'm chugging my Red Bull," I might give them a juice just for that. But
Or, if I forget how you build it in this game because it's been a while, but the hyper metabolic type character that it just, it hits you really, really hard. Everything hits you really, really hard, and that's one of the flaws for you. But at the same time, at that point, it hits you really hard, hits you for less time. Then maybe, caffeine gives you a juice.
aye. So, Alice, you've talked about your primary power, and
Yes.
that's an important thing. We mentioned that one of your powers has to be from your strain. There's 3 powers that you can have total, and that's all you can ever get. You have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. Your primary has to be higher than your secondary has to be higher than your tertiary, and your primary determines what strain you are. So I am looking at taking 2 points in a power called Enhancer. And what Enhancer is going to do is, and Alice is going to giggle as she listens to this, but it is usually regarded as a support ability per the text, which I generally play the support, she generally plays the beats. I don't think that Jolt is so much the beats in this group, but I do think that it's entertaining that
Well,
we
I think I think over the years that has been warped to Alice plays that powerhouse in some way that she shuts things down. So she's offensive, you're defensive. So I am still offensive. I'm still shutting things down. I'm still doing things. I'm just not doing it in an outward damage fashion necessarily. I'm doing it utility fashion.
So with Enhancer, I add my Enhancer, half my Enhancer ranks to anything that is a power roll. So if powers are being involved, I'm going to add half my Enhancer. At the moment, that'll be a +1 to any roll with a power. I can also give up to my Enhancer level, so 2 points of juice per round to another amp by touching them. And so this goes to being Copper Top. I'm able to charge other people up with energy. Since I've taken 2 levels, I get one of those augments. And my goal, my long-term goal here is something called Ultimate Power, which supercharges somebody. It's the Fabian Cortez move. But I'm not there yet. So the first thing that I have to do is take Boost Strength, which is a trick 1. And it just allows me to add my Enhancer to my might checks or add 2 damage to an attack roll. And so I'm able to get stronger through the use of juice. And that it is just me. I can't give that boosting of strength to other people yet. What about your secondary, Alice?
My secondary is going to be Bolt. And what Bolt is it sounds just like it.
So, Bolt, first of all, Alice is left shaper, and she's come over into my playground of being in the blaster powers.
Yes, it is a blaster power. And what that is I'm going to be doing, I pull these radio waves through connecting with electricity, and that's how I'm dealing with machinery, is that I am conducting this electricity and being able to communicate with it. And so I feel that I can basically coalesce it within me and shoot it out. And
so Bolt's check.
Points, sorry.
Oh, you're doing 2 points in it?
I do 2 points in Bolt, and so with 2 points, I get 1 ability, 1 in augment, and that in this case is going to be a tier 1.
What is the core ability first?
Oh, yes. Let me go to the core ability.
It's page 77.
Thank you. Page 77. So the core ability is going to be based off of, so for the check, it's going to be Bolt plus marksmanship. And if you
What's your marksmanship?
0. So
okay, that's what I thought I remembered.
Come
on, hold on. Isn't shooting hoops going to be based off marksmanship?
Apparently not. And so apparently I might be a little screwed here. Oops. Well, I won't be very accurate with my bolts, but I do have other stuff that I'll be doing with it. So, range is going to be bolt plus intuition plus perception. That I have enough to get some good range on. And then for the core ability, Bolt is the staple ability of blasters, allowing the amp to fire bolts of energy of their chosen type at their enemies. Many blasters release bolt from their hands, but other blast fire from their eyes or sound with a scream. They make a check to hit the deal damage according to their current level. The amp may also spend 1 juice to add 2b damage to their shot, making an extra deadly. Juice must be spent before making their check. So I may
And
have
so,
to adjust my skill points a little bit again to try and get some marksmanship.
yeah, because I think that like literally shooting the basket would probably be based off marksmanship, Alice.
Yeah, so I think
I mean, what else are you seeing that would pair with athletics to simulate that?
yeah, so I think I'm going to go to marksmanship. I'm dropping my might, which is going to lower my initiative, um, and lower some other stats later. But I'm going to drop my might entirely, and we're going to drop one out of, well, I'm going to drop 2 out of fighting to bring marksman up to a 3. Because I'm still at that point decent at fighting, but at
You
fortitude
might
4,
want 3 fighting, 3 fortitude, 3 marksmanship.
sure, I'll go with that. That's what I've adjusted to at that point. There we go.
All right, and then what about your augment?
My augment is going to be recharge, and that is a tier 1 trick, so T1. And what recharge does, let me find it and read it to all of you. Recharge T1 is going to be electricity. At tier 2, it's going to be light. I'm never going to use
It's
a tier
not
2.
tier, remember,
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
trick.
Trick 2.
Uh,
I'm never going to spend the trick 2 in theory because that's out of my element, so I didn't bother writing that down. I'm just reminding myself that it's T1 for me, meaning I'll spend 1 juice whenever I use it. And the check is going to be nothing, and it's going to be ranged touch. But the amp is never without their important devices. The trick instantly recharges any electrical item low on battery, jumps a car, or makes objects that need electricity to operate for the duration without a power source. So like I said, I don't need to drive because I deal with cars very well in other forms. Or if my laptop's running low or my phone's running low on power, I don't need to worry about that. So,
awesome.
yep.
And so you're spending 4 in technopathy and then 2 in bolt.
And just start with before freebies, yes.
Gotcha. All right. For my second power, I'm going to stay the whole time. I'm going to stay in that blaster strain, and I'm going with vampire. Vampire. The check is going to be vampire plus medicine. And what vampire does is allows me to take a damage that cannot be negated to steal another character's juice with a moderate check. Moderate being a 10. So I take my medicine of 7 plus my vampire of 2, and then attack you. If you notice 7 plus 2 does equal 9, roll a d20, you're at 10. So basically I am going to be able to steal others' juices on that roll, guaranteed. A success means they lose 1 juice plus an additional juice per boost. Boost, once again, is every 5 that I roll above. And it transfers to the amp. Juice gain cannot exceed my maximum. Your maximum is normally a 10 for characters. And if the target has no juice, because they're just a sapient, they lose integrity instead, which is transferred for 2 integrity to 1 juice. So I'd have to roll the 15, do 2 integrity of damage to get a juice. And then there's a limitation that if you regenerate, you have to take brutal damage, which is, if you've played the White Wolf games, there's bashing and then there's lethal. It's kind of like that. There's damage and then there's the brutal damage. For the augment that I'm going with for vampire, I once again have a goal here. And that is going to be that I'm going to become a leech master. Doesn't that sound like an awesome thing? But to start off I have to learn how to take people's skills. And so I can mimic, if I touch somebody, I can mimic a skill for the duration of the scene, basically. And they, if I have drained them of their integrity, they get a negative on their resistance against it. And so, but it allows me to do a whole lot of different things. If we see that we're going to have to use athletics coming up, I can say, hey, Jolt, can I borrow that for just a minute? And so it can be
quick on your feet. Let me borrow that for a minute.
That's right. And so that's what the augment is going to do for me. Alice doesn't have a tertiary, so we're going to stick with me here. And my tertiary is, to be honest, my absolute favorite of the powers in this game, and that is battery. It doesn't do that much, but it just kind of makes it's the grease that keeps the wheels going for a lot of powers. And so first of all, it raises my maximum juice by 1 for every point that I've got into it. So I've got 2, my maximum juice is going to be at 12. Then I'm able to absorb energy, and since Alice was going with electricity, I could actually go and say I want to be electricity, and then Alice could charge me up by firing bolts of energy at me. But I figured going a little bit different.
Or I could literally recharge you by touching you.
I figured be a little bit different and go with heat and fire, which also still works, and that's the heat of life energy. I kind of took that as part of it. So I can absorb energy if it's shot at me. So heat and fire damage, I start just knocking points off, and I get juice back for that damage. If I am near a good source of fire or a good source of heat, I also will recharge juice over time.
And
go ahead.
I do just want to bring up that it literally, for my recharge, it doesn't just work on electronics. It specifically says, or makes objects that need electricity to operate for the duration. So I can.
Yes, but I'm not an object.
That's true, but I could touch you. Okay, go ahead.
And they specifically call out, because they're in their example energy types, there's cold, fire, force, electricity, gravity, light, and sound. And so they say that in those extreme conditions, or a noticeable, for gravity, if you go skydiving, you're experiencing severe gravity, and so you would recharge with battery because of that. The augment that I'm going with is the thing that I just absolutely love about battery, and that is boost juice. It's an enhancement 2, and it allows you to spend 2 juice to gain 3 juice for the use of a power, basically. So now I'm using my energy more efficiently than other characters are, just going with that battery kind of concept. So we have, at that point, moved past selecting of powers. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about on that, Alice?
Nope, not at the moment.
All right. So then we are moving on to our bonus points. Characters who took an affiliation get 12 bonus points. Alice and I went unaffiliated, and so we both get 16 bonus points. You can take up to 10 points of drawbacks to gain extra bonus points, and then you get to spend them. The rate is, if you buy a gift, then you get whatever cost it is. Skills cost 1 bonus point each, or 2 bonus points if it's level 9-10. Specialties cost 1 bonus point each. The example that they have is somebody with a specialty in motorcycles. So that's a +2 on any roll that's dealing with the motorcycle. And so it's not like you take the specialty and you apply it to a specific thing. It's just applied across the board. Whenever you put a skill roll, you could look at your specialties and say, oh, I've got this. Does this apply? Power levels to enhance the powers that we've taken cost 3 bonus points for primary, 4 for secondary, and 5 for tertiary. Taking additional augments, so additional of those bonus powers, which we can only do for our primary power, costs 2 points each. And if like I only have 2 points spent in Enhancer, I can only get 1 extra augment. Alice has 4 in hers, in her technopathy, so she could buy that twice at the moment. Basically, your total amount of augments can't exceed your power level. The power level's cap at 10. And 2 points to buy further loyalties. So why don't we start with disadvantages, because getting bonus points is always a good place to figure out how much bonus points you're about to have. So Alice, what'd you take for disadvantages?
My disadvantages are going to be paranoia, which costs 3. It means that I'm going to take a negative whenever I deal with someone for the first time, because I don't trust people to start with. And if things didn't go well the first time I dealt with them, well, the next time I might take that same neg. I also have a ward, which also is worth 3 points. My ward is my little brother that I had to take custody of.
You named your little brother Ward?
No, I don't have a name for him yet.
He's nameless? Yes. This is slavery, Alice.
Maybe he's just going to be named Icknot, okay? So, my third one is going to be continuous power at 1 rank. This is a scalable variable one that goes 1 to 3 or 1 to 5. I don't remember right now. But continuous power, what that does is, this one's the 1 to 3. So when I choose a power that it connects with, and that power is basically always on and will cause me some level of issue. And I took it at 1 because it's a minor nuisance. It's not like keeping me up all day and night, because I've gotten used to it. But it's a bit like Gary, where I can zone out because the internet's always going and suddenly I get a pop-up. And the last thing I have is going to be an enemy at 3. And that, again, is another variable option. At 3, this is someone who is going to have someone who has ties or leadership roles within small organizations or larger organization if they have ties to it. And in this case, this is going to be the ex-gang boss that I used to be in the gang of, and he doesn't like that I got out. I rub him the wrong way, and he doesn't like me, and he wants to make me pay. So at that point, that's all 10 of the points that I'm allotted.
Awesome. For me, I'm looking at taking the curious drawback, that I'm trying to find things out, and if I'm wondering what they're talking about over there, what's going on out the door, all that kind of stuff, and that I can, need to make a mental trauma roll to basically resist doing things to satisfy my curiosity. I have Lifesaver, which once again I have to make a mental trauma roll to leave people behind. And so this is actually a hard one. That's a DC 20 mental trauma, to not go, to allow somebody to be left behind. And my humanity of 3 goes against me on that. So it actually moves it up to a 23. Beyond that, I hate seeing people in pain, and I'm going to try and avoid that. Kind of goes with the way that I'm building the character. I'm not really offensive other than my vampiric abilities, but most of those are actually going to be about, not so much doing damage, but working in other ways. I have taken Backfire, which is a specific one determined by the strain that you have. And so my Backfire, since I'm a blaster, it's Backfire because I'm a blaster, and I'm filled with so much energy that if I ever roll a 20 or a 1, I take damage because of that. And just because all of a sudden all that energy just kind of burns me, since we're going with fire. And the last one that I'm doing is Trail, and this is allows, whenever I use my powers, there is something that lingers and can allow people to track me. Amps are going to notice it better than normal humans, but I think that anybody is able to track that. And since we are going with that, I was in the lightning versus fire. The lightning would be that smell of ozone, and the trail for fire is that like a burnt wood smell that just kind of wafts around, and it gives my enemies a +2 bonus to track me down if I've used my powers. The trail lasts for an hour, and this one, similarly to the one Alice was talking about, it scales up. I only have the lowest level of it at getting 1 build point back. But it can go up to 5, so a +10 bonus to track, which kind of means that you're going to get found out. After that, how are you spending your 26 points, Alice?
Okay. I'm going to spend 2 points in bringing my persuasion up to 7 from 5. I'm spending 4 points each, so 8 points total, to bring my blaster bolt up to 4. This allows me to automatically get a second augment, and in my
How much? Oh, blaster, yes. Sorry.
Blaster bolt. So that cost me 8, and that got me an automatic homing blast, which is going to be an E1, which means it's an enhancement 1. It's got actually 1 per added dodge. This is going to be basically that I GPS in on someone, and it's hard for them to dodge out of my way when I hit them or try to hit them.
With your energy blast.
Yes, with my energy blast. Then I paid 2 more points into Faceless. And this is going to be a trick 1 or 2, depending on what I'm spending. And at 1, I disappear from surveillance. Cameras don't pick me up. Audio tracks don't pick me up. Surveillance just doesn't get me. At 2, I'm also able to manipulate records, meaning that I can make something else appear in the video records, or make something else appear on audio records, or anything else.
So not only can you pull what was considered to be in Vampire the Masquerade just like the best disadvantage for a lot of people of that La Sombra, that they don't show up in reflective surfaces or on surveillance. Of course, it makes it really easy for the hunters to find you, but people always try to find ways to use it. But you can, instead of making it so obvious that nothing is there, fill in other stuff. That's a cool power.
Yes. And you know me, I tend to be creative when I do stuff like that, so I found that to be probably very in line with the way that I play, because I'll probably come up with some crazy stupid stuff to put in.
Yeah, I'm certain.
And then for gifts, I have an accurate eye. And I forgot what that does, so let me go look that up.
I'll look it up. You keep talking.
I have Light Sleeper. Light Sleeper lets me sleep only 4 hours a night. I took that because I basically became this alien form, that I'm not as human as I used to be, and I'm so rooted in technology that I don't need to sleep as much anymore. Natural warrior.
Alice?
Yes.
Accurate eye. And this is where your hoop shooting time is gone. You have an eye for throwing and things and fighting at a distance. You receive a +2 bonus to ranged actions, which inflict +1 damage if used in combat. So that your bolt that's doing 2B is now up to a 3B damage, or a 5B if you supercharge it.
Yep. Natural warrior. I'm good at a fight. I'm just naturally good at fighting. I have a gang pass. Now, gang pass is a gift because I know where gang territories are. This is the game's essentially the game's version of Streetwise. I know where the bad elements are. I know where the boundaries are for different groups, and therefore I can avoid the culture, avoid the area, stuff like that.
You know where to go to pay for sex to get some juice, and you know where to go to buy stimulants to get juice.
Not my thing, but okay.
Natural Warrior, by the way, what it's doing, we've talked about that rolling 5 over to get a boost. In combat, she only needs to roll 4 over to get a boost, because that's what that's accomplishing. So it's a really powerful ability.
And for the last one, I took Untraceable, because I've actively, since I got my power, gone and scrubbed my identity, the fact that I have affiliations with gangs, or, a bunch of stuff from that's on the internet about myself, I went and actively scrubbed it. I don't have a social media account under my identity anymore. I don't have any of my pictures up on the internet. I am a ghost. And so I took that at level 3. This is a variable one between 1 and 5. And I took 3. So this means that anybody who tries to track me down online or in through records of any sort has to take a -6 to their die roll. -2 per rank that I took that in. And that is what I took.
All right, so you took 12 build points from other things, and then 14 build points in your gifts. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's where my math was leading me to. Well, awesome. For me, I'm a bit more zoned in on where I want to be than Alice. I felt my powers were the place that I needed more points, so I'm going to spend most of my stuff there. But I did spend 10 points on my gifts. I similarly am a light sleeper. It gives me a bonus against falling unconscious and allows me to only sleep 3 hours a night, which is, I mean, fantastic. I wish I was a light sleeper. Forget about a lot of other superpowers. If I only had to sleep 3 hours a night, I could get a lot more done in a day. I'm a quick healer, and so I heal normal damage at a increased rate and brutal damage at an increased rate. So I thought that kind of just worked with that image of this person that's concerned about life and welling up with life. Unlike Alice, I am not literally scrounging for my brother and I out of dumpsters. I have wealth. I only spent 2 of it, which means that I'm comfortable. Basically, I've got an apartment that is being paid for. I've got some disposable income every month. And that's another one that scales from 1 to 5. I spent 2 on it. And the last one is a gift called Power Focus. And what this does is it reduces the cost of an augment by 1. The augment that I took that for was my favorite augment, Boost Juice. So now I'm spending 1 juice to get 3 juice.
I do need to make a correction to something you stated. I am not foraging out of dumpsters and whatnot or freeloading, because that is specifically a drawback that is
Is it?
yes,
Okay.
that's in the game as a drawback. If you don't buy wealth and you don't buy broke, then you are assumed to basically be in the just getting by hand to mouth. So you've got little disposable income, I'm going hand to mouth, but I am not broke.
You've got $250 disposable income a month. You have little in the way of personal possessions. She doesn't need it. She's just going to borrow your computer from 5 feet away, apparently. And you likely share your apartment with some people in the same predicament. Gotcha.
I probably live on campus with special arrangements made for my little brother.
Those are the gifts that I'm taking, which is going to burn out 10 of my points. So I basically took those drawbacks and invested them right into gifts. I'm burning 16 points on my powers. That's going to be 2 more ranks of enhancer, cost me 6 points. That's going to get me a boost power, which is a trick 2 touch range, and it allows me to double a d20 die result on a power check. And I do that reflexively rather than actively. So Alice is like, oh, I'm going to use the internet. I'm like, boost power. Alice is like, I'm going to go shoot that guy with electricity. I'm like, boost power. And so if she rolls a 1 on the d20, she now rolled a 2. If she rolled a 20, she now rolled a 40. So it's pretty awesome, I think, and it goes really well with that theory. Plus, it's getting me that much closer to the ultimate power that I want out of Enhancer. I'm spending 8 points to buy 2 more ranks in my Vampire, so that'll mean that I've got 4, 4, and 2 in my 3 powers. And what I'm going to go ahead and do with that is grab Leech Power. This is a trick 2 touch range where I make a Vampire plus Discipline roll. And that allows me to gain a level equal to half whatever the level is of somebody else's power, as well as 1 boost they already had. And so once again, I'm like, oh, we're using the internet to research? Okay, probably not a good idea, because I also cut their power down. So I probably shouldn't be using it on you, Alice. But if we've got an opponent and they're like super strength and they're going to beat the crud out of us, I'm like, hey, how about I borrow some of that super strength and then you don't beat the crud out of us so much? Or if they're super tough, I'm like, hey, now I'm super tough and you're only half as super tough as you were a minute ago.
You're Rogue.
So
from the
it's
X-Men.
pretty awesome. Yes, exactly that. And the power that I'm building towards in Vampire makes me even more Rogue from X-Men. The last 2 points, I'm going to do the same thing that Alice did and buy an additional augment. And this one's going to be an enhancement on my enhancer. It's called Double Trouble, and it's an E2, so it's going to cost 2 juice. And instead of only adding half my enhancer ranks to my power checks, I'm going to now get to add my full enhancer to my power checks if I pay for that. So normally I'm just always adding 2 to any power check I make. This would allow me to add 4 to the power checks that I make instead. That's all 26 of those build points. Those disappear just as fast as the skills do, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're going to come down and we have a little bit of bookkeeping at the lower end of the sheet just to fill in a few things. Going through them quickly, my max juice is going to be 12 because I've got 2 ranks in battery. Alice is going to have a max juice of 10 because she doesn't have any battery taken. Our integrity, which is like hit points, is going to be determined by taking your fortitude and adding 10 to it. So I believe that I've got a fortitude of 0 in my build. That's correct. So I'm only going to have 10 integrity. Alice, I think you've got some fortitude. Was it 3 ranks of it?
I've got 3 ranks, so I've got 13 integrity.
So she could take, or he could take a punch a little bit better than me. Our movement is going to be our athletics plus our speed plus 5. So I've got an athletics of 2 and a speed of 0. So I'm going to have a movement of 7 feet.
I've got an athletics of 6 in the end, and I've got a speed of 1, so that's 7. So I'm going to be a speed of 12. Multiplying that by 15 for my run speed puts me at 160 run.
I'm only 105 feet of running. To determine our jumping, we are going to go ahead and take our athletics. This is for horizontal. Our athletics plus our might plus 4 feet. Once again, 2 athletics, 0 might, plus 4 feet. I've got a 6-foot horizontal jump. Cut that in half. I've got a 3-foot vertical jump.
And for me, I've got a athletics of 6, might of 0 now. And I've got, so that plus 4 is 10. So horizontal jump of 10 and vertical jump of 5.
No wonder you're good at basketball.
Told ya.
Then our initiative is our intuition plus our speed. I've got a 0 speed, but a 4 intuition, so I'm going to get a plus 4 on my initiative rolls.
I get a plus 1 on my initiative rolls.
Our strength bonus is going to be our might plus our athletics, so I've got an athletics of 2. That's a strength bonus of 2. Alice?
I've got athletics of 6, so I've got, and no might, so I've got a 6 strength bonus.
And the last thing is our carry lift. So it's 50 pounds plus 25 pounds per might level, and that's what you can carry. And you can lift up to double of that. So I'm 50 pounds carry, 100 pounds lift.
As am I.
Because you don't have any might. So you're lifting as much as me. Luckily, I can boost my muscles up to get a little bit of a benefit on that. And I can end up being 100, 200 if I need. That's the AMP character creation. It's not, Hero System or Mutants and Masterminds where you get to absolutely pick every detail about yourself that you've decided that you want and go with that. Instead, because they've got that meta plot, it's not a universal superhero game. It's really designed to play in this meta plot that you are a little pointed at specific things. So you're not going to find every power, but you do get a wide range of things, and it does allow you to make a lot that you might want to do. I've never really felt that limited by it, but it definitely has made me think what's actually important to the character that I'm envisioning at times.
And similar to Hero System, this does take a little bit of skill and expertise and understanding of how systems like this would work to maximize your build. And I learned this because I was dealing with a group where when I joined, they had basically been dealing with repeated character deaths. Uh, they had at one point 3 characters die twice, jumped to 2 different new characters in a week apparently before I joined. So the first thing they told me was to make somebody that was long distance and didn't want to be anywhere near melee because I would die. And instead of listening to them, I had a talk with the GM, found out how what the GM was running people through, and I built a character named Tank. And he was aptly named because once I joined, nobody died again. I became nicknamed the movable wall. The teleporter started hiding behind me and using and piggyback riding on my back, and it was quite entertaining on that because they suddenly learned that a tank can be useful if you build the tank right. So like
And
other
didn't like the teleporter. First of all, I mean they used you like movable wall, your
literally a
nickname.
movable wall is
Um,
very
but
entertaining.
didn't they have like a yo-yo attack in that game or something?
Yes, he took an enhancement for that, and so he basically would build up his juice, and then he would yo-yo attack. So he would be on my back, sitting on my back, and the most iconic one that I remember was we were dealing with like a horde of gangbangers, 16 gangbangers that were very
Wow, that's
anti-superpower.
pretty badass.
Um, and uh, and so we were on a rooftop, and they were on the opposite rooftop or something like that. And the 16 gangbangers were shooting at us with guns and throwing knives at us and such like that. And so everyone just piled up behind me, and then the teleporter jumped on my back. And then on the teleporter's action, he yo-yoed out, pinged one of them, knocked him out, knocked the mook out, came back onto my back, and he just kept doing this back and forth for a while, and it was really entertaining on that. And I just kept moving forward. So, but yeah, it's like any other system. It does have a lot of nuance, and it does take more skill than some of the lighter systems. I really do like this system. It has a lot of crunch and nuance to it.
Yeah, it's a really good way to play like an alphas type game,
Mm-hmm.
or something else that's doing that kind of storyline. Mutant X would be another show that's done this kind of level.
Yes.
But definitely, that street level where where a ganger is a threat to everybody but the movable wall. And just like when you're dealing with Superman, you might not be able to hurt Superman, but you can sure blow Lois Lane's brains everywhere.
Exactly. So it was very entertaining that to be the movable wall, because when they told me that there'd been a lot of bullets, I took impervious to bullets, so all of a sudden bullets would do massively reduced damage to me and almost not hurt me at all. Every once in a while it would scratch me. That was about it.
Yeah, maybe we should come back
So
at some point and
and
you
build some
reconstruct
tanks.
Tank
Yeah.
and more combat-oriented characters, because both of us came in with ideas for non-combat characters or reduced combat
Hey,
characters.
I have plenty of combat capability. It's just that I'm not going to put my own body at risk for them. That's my plan, at least. But
There you go.
yep. And so thank you all for watching Babies with Knives. I hope you have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. And see you next time. Please don't forget to subscribe. Bye.
Adios.